Good evening. Good evening. How's everybody doing? Hope everyone's having a great Wednesday/hump day. Welcome to Coast to Coast Packers. We got a little bit of a special edition here today. We got ourselves probably one of the, I don't say longest tenure, but he's been on the beat now probably for almost over 25 years. Currently with the Packers beat at the Athletic, and previously was with the Wisconsin State Journal. Does his show with Wilde and Tausch every day. I hope I get the time right. 9 to noon Central Time, and he's probably been he's a girl dad like me. He's really inspirational on Twitter and on all his shows. And myself and Bernie thought we had him on here and think we could chop it up about some Packer stuff and hear some stories on the beat and just see what he has to say. So Bernie, how you doing? And
I'm doing great, man. It's great to sit here. Thanks for joining us tonight, Jason. Appreciate it.
You guys sound very choppy to me, so I think I'm in a bad location in my 219,000 mile.
Oh. No. Well, he was right. It looks like he's coming back into the studio, though.
Reception. Do you guys sound bad to me? Do I sound bad to you?
No.
Yeah, well, you cut out there for a second, but now you're back in.
Yeah. No.
Oh.
Again.
All right. I have faith he'll find a good spot here.
Yeah.
Well, we got a question already. Iowa Joe's got one lined up here.
Okay.
Who wins in a cage match, Wes Hott or Matt Schneiderman? Yes, it was a bad location.
Yes, it was.
Well, hopefully he'll jump back in here with us tonight. But we're going to be talking about some free agency, OTAs, maybe a little bit of the draft. We beat that to death. Maybe touch on the schedule again tonight. But once Jason jumps back in here, we'll get going on those topics. So if you can think of any questions that maybe you have about those topics, throw those in the comment section right now. Please. I'll star those, and we'll try to come back and snag those questions when it's appropriate and throw them Jason's way. But thanks for dropping in this special episode tonight. I know it's just kind of a random time, and Jason's finding some time for us here, and hopefully he'll find some good reception here. A moment. He was talking to us on the way to the parking lot, and it was going good.
It was perfect. Like driving, he was good. Like I think he should just get back. I don't want him driving and doing this though.
Yeah,
that's the last thing I want. But I was like, man, he parked, and it was like, oh man, what happened? But I was gonna say it's really cool for him to do this. And I think when it comes to everyone should know it's Matt Schneidman's birthday today, and so I messed that up by thinking it was Chancellor Johnson's, and he corrected me kindly. But yeah, so if you guys haven't already, make sure you get on Twitter and go wish that Mr. Scheibman a birthday. He had some pretty cool comments today about Jeff Hafley as well as Jordan Love's contract, and I really want to get Wilde's thoughts on it, and then also what his observations have been attending some of the rookie mini camps and attending some of the. And I think he was in pocket for the OTAs yesterday, and also. If you heard any scuttlebutt during his locker room reviews and stuff like that, just really getting his insight on things as he's on the ground level there.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I listened to a bit of his show today, and I thought it was funny. Did somebody ask him if he was if he got caught up or slowed down by Rudy Ford, and he's just like Rudy Ford's not on the team anymore.
Yeah, so I heard that.
All right, let's see here. Here he is. All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
How do we sound to you, Jason?
Sound better?
You guys sound amazing. I got full bars. I'm in some random law firm parking lot. So if I get arrested for trespassing, it's on you guys.
Okay. All right. Let's just send the bill.
All right. We'll post your bail.
Yeah, we got you. Try to write it off or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Well, somebody's going to have to take the dogs if I get hauled off. So I think we're good. All right. I appreciated the kind introduction, or at least of what I heard. Yeah, this will be year 29 for me. I think Tom Silverstein and Pete Doherty are the two that have tenure on me. I've got Rob Domofsky by a year. I would like to get to 50, which means that I would have to keep covering the team until I'm 73. So I've got a ways to go, but I'm going to give it a run. So I appreciate you guys having me on, and enough about me. What do you guys want to talk about? Because I don't want to waste your time with my life story.
All right.
Bernie, you go first, man.
Well, I'll just say it's great to have you here, and I'll just start with I say he Soder here has a question that it was similar to me too. It may be a woulda, coulda, shoulda this offseason, maybe a free agency miss. Like one guy you might have heard rumors that we missed on that you wish we would have hit on, maybe.
Yeah, look, I think if you look at the two guys that they signed, and one of the things that I've found really interesting, and maybe it's just because he gets juxtaposed against Ted, but like everybody seems to think, or not everybody, because not every Packers fan is the same, but so much of the fan base views Goody as so much more aggressive than Ted and willing to spend in free agency more than Ted. And it really was predicated on one offseason, right? The 2019 offseason, when it was the two Smith brothers, it was Adrian Amos and it was Billy Turner. And I would argue that what they did this offseason has the potential to be just as transformative as that offseason was. And in between, he did very little in free agency. Now, Goody deserves praise for signing some really bargain guys that panned out. Right now, the decision to then pay Devondre Campbell can be second guessed. I would say the decision to re-sign Rasul Douglas, I wouldn't second guess that. No, they got him for cheap. He was really good, and then he traded him away. Which again, I'm sorry, he doesn't make that trade at the trade deadline if he thinks that they're going to be a playoff team. He also does not stick with a rookie kicker if he thinks they're going to be a playoff team. So he deserves a ton. So he deserves a ton of credit for the moves that he's done in free agency. I just don't think we should view him as some sort of like big spender in free agency. But he spent big on Xavier McKinney, obviously, although a really smart contract for the team. And he spent big on Josh Jacobs, but that Josh Jacobs deal is kind of like Aaron Jones's 4-year, $48 million deal from several years ago. It's really a 2-year deal. So they've spent, so I don't think there's anybody that quote is like the guy that got away. Gotcha. But at the same time, I'm really fascinated. We spent some time talking to Xavier McKinney yesterday, and I mean, he helped me out with this. He is him.
Yes.
Am I doing that right? I think he is the linchpin of what they want to do, and he knows it, and he carries himself that way. And I think he's already having an impact on Jair. You can see them, at least the one practice we saw, they're together out there. I mean, I think he's going to prove to be a really smart signing, whether or not we're putting him in the echelon of Charles Woodson, Reggie White. That's awfully a high rent district.
Would that be comparable, like Nick Collins?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm glad you bring up his name because that's a guy that they have been searching to replace since he got hurt in 2011.
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
And they've tried drafting guys like they've tried signing guys like Adrian Amos. This guy's got the best chance to be at the level that, I mean, look, I remember me or Rob Domofsky and me, we were at the NFL meetings and Mike McCarthy saying to us as they tried to figure out if Nick Collins could play again, that he is on a Pro Football Hall of Fame trajectory.
Easily.
And the fact that he wasn't able to continue on that and that they've been searching ever since, that again, that's high rent district to be putting him in. But yes, I would put him in the best chance they have of having a guy that can tilt the field since Nick Collins is Xavier McKinney.
Oh man, that makes me feel good. Amar, what you got, man?
No, I was gonna say I think that the whole part about Gutekunst kind of getting put into that because that second year, because you and me have agreed a lot when it came to his first year about the cut that he made that I didn't agree with, and
I have no idea what you're referring to.
Oh, you do, baby, you do. The funny thing is, though, I've always said that he did his kind of like, hey, Aaron, I'm in charge. This is how we're going to do things. Instead of like, it might be more about Devontae. I get that. But I remember I watched like some highlights. Someone's putting on Huntley beating the Bears when he was playing, and Jordy was still getting open. So it wasn't like he had fallen off. It was just like, hey, we want Devontae to be number one. I think that was kind of whatever. I think Goody was trying to tell Aaron, hey, this is my show. We're going to run it my way, and you're going to get with it or not. And then afterwards, the Jimmy Graham thing, maybe Rodgers asked for it. Maybe Gutekunst thought that was like a good way of kind of mitigating the loss of Jordy. But I don't know. Just for me, just seeing what he did the following year with those free agents, yeah, it was great. And then you really did see that Ted disciple come out. But Ted did make moves just like Goody did, getting Howard Green, getting Brandon Chiller, getting guys that like just came in and did their part and helped us win that Super Bowl. And so I guess I'm really looking at now the state of the Packers. They made these two great signings. They drafted well again, and we're hoping they drafted well again, right? And like, how are you feeling when it comes the big thing about his vibe and just and you've been speaking on this on your shows too, so I'm hoping I'm not making you repeat yourself too much, but just like your feel of like with this offseason, the coach said it, the players have been saying it, and how do you feel just being in the locker room and just seeing the way people are engaging in comparison to other years when Rodgers was there and even previous tenures too?
Well, first of all, I do think this is just such a different dynamic, and we can use the word vibe all we want, but it is different. It is a different vibe. Like, and I did think it was funny that, Jordan Morgan came in and said that the first time he met Jordan Love, he was like nervous.
Like starstruck.
Oh my gosh, that's Jordan Love. Which it's a good thing he didn't get drafted when Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback. He might have fainted, but and look, I've mentioned this before. Like, my biggest criticism of Rodgers toward the end was the fact that he did not appreciate how important it was that he should have been there for the 2022 offseason program.
Right.
And I've said that to him, so it's not like I'm saying that behind his back.
Right.
It was a mistake. And, even last year, I've told this story before, but, standing there and talking to Romeo Doubs and him saying, I learned a lot from Aaron, even with him barely speaking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And,
that says a lot.
and so he was in camp with the Jets, and I texted him. I said, look, this is what Dobbs said. I don't need a comment from you for my story, but I want you to know what he said. So in case you get asked about it. Mm-hmm. And, I'll be honest, and this was off the record, but I think it's fair to share this part of it. Like, his response was essentially, hey, I had lunch with him. I made the effort, to connect with him. And my point back was, well, it wasn't enough, right? Exactly. It doesn't matter if you think it was enough.
Exactly.
What matters is what the young player thinks. And he didn't think it was enough, clearly, right? Mm-hmm. And so I look back on that 2022 offseason and juxtapose it with this offseason where they've got 100% attendance. Like, Robert Rochelle was the only one who wasn't there, and he had a personal issue.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, and when Rodgers wasn't coming to the offseason program, it was a free-for-all. Everybody figured they didn't have to come, right? And yes. Yesterday, Keyshawn Nixon is there. Jair is there. They're all there. Yeah. And yes, some of them have workout bonuses to earn. And clearly Jair, after passing on $700,000 last year, he's not doing it this year. But I do think, LaFleur made the comment yesterday, it starts with the quarterback. And I do think it does. And that, coupled with, these guys are all like, they're going to each other's weddings, and like there's this, they are at that point like they were in Rodgers' early time, right? Like, I remember talking with Darren College and him saying essentially the same thing about Favre as Romeo Doubs said about Rodgers. And so it's just a natural progression. And when you're as old as me, you get to experience Favre is the young guy, and then Favre is the old guy. Then Rodgers is the young guy, and Rodgers is the old guy. Hopefully, I'm still doing this to experience what Jordan Love is like as the old guy.
I can't wait. Yeah.
But
in Green Bay, right?
Yes, and then he'll go off the deep end, and God knows what will happen with him.
No.
But based on the track record of the other two. But look, the reality is that, like, he is setting the tone. He is there. He shot down most of the questions about the contract yesterday. So the guys really want to play for him, just like those guys in 08, 09, and 10
Exactly.
really wanted to play for Rodgers. And that's the vibe that you want for your team. And if it's not going to last, right? We're seeing with San Francisco with Brandon Ayuk being disgruntled or Deebo Samuel being unhappy. You're seeing it with Justin Jefferson. So they really do need to enjoy this and maximize it and take advantage of it while they can, because there will be issues for them. We know that. But I don't think they'll be this year. And now's the, strike while the iron is hot if you can.
That's our saying. And with you saying that, I wanted to ask about the Jordan Love thing, because I heard you on Matt Hamilton's show. I think it's Matt Hamilton's show yesterday, right? And he's like, hey, I want to wait until the middle of the season to pay Jordan, right? And you've been very steadfast, like, hey, you know what? Either you pay him now, or the price is going to keep going up. What Tausch always says, what's today's price is not tomorrow's price, or it might be a little bit yesterday's price is not today's price. But
well, the gas prices are definitely higher today, I noticed. Yeah, so Tausch is not wrong about that theory.
He got that one right. But I guess my question is, like, back in 08, where Rodgers came in, he had a 6-10 season. A lot of that was the defense, but his numbers were pretty good, right? He had 28 touchdowns, 14, 18 picks. But he had a better supporting cast. His offense was a heck of a lot more experienced with all those weapons that he had, that you looked at that, and he still got paid a pretty large extension right after that year. And then you put in Jordan.
During that year, though. And I think that's the important difference. And I think that the reason – sorry to cut you off, but here's the challenge. So he was in the pre-fifth-year option era, right? And so Ted was in a position after 7 games of the 2008 season to give him that extension, which I think was 6 years, $63 million. And there was $20 million guaranteed. Yeah. Like, the fact that 15 years later or whatever, we're looking at Jordan Love
1 year,
$200 million and $180 million guaranteed or whatever. I mean, that's more than just inflation for Tausch.
Of course.
But what I think is fascinating is that now in retrospect, right? And look, I keep saying this because it's the one thing that kind of ticks me off. There is a segment of the fan base that says, I knew all along Jordan was going to be great. Never a doubt. The Packers had a doubt. The guy who drafted him had doubts. Goody said to us last year, as the 5th-year option deadline was approaching, that that's a lot of money to pay a guy who hasn't played. That was Goody's quote. That wasn't me. That's what Goody said. Now, as it turned out, for as good as he turned out to be in the second half of last season, and the fact that doing the extension the way they did handcuffed them from being able to do an extension anytime before May 3rd, 2024, with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, that's the mistake. Like, you would have loved to have had your options to then in December, when he's on this hot streak, pay him. Right. And they literally could not pay him. And so when you look at where they're at now, look, I am pro player. We mentioned, Nick Collins, and I use this example all the time, but like, his life was changed by the fact that he held out, got an extension, got guaranteed money, and then had the neck injury. If he doesn't do that, his life is different today. I mean, I know he's coaching at Bethune-Cookman and he's happy. He's a good dude, but like, he has extra money in the nest egg that he wouldn't have had otherwise.
Exactly.
And so in Jordan's case, and when I got there late yesterday to the
your question was funny. Your question was funny.
but he he gave me so much grief about that. Like, boy, you worry a lot. Like, are you like this with the girls? And I said yes. Because, Ronica came and talked to Sid's volleyball team, which was great. And so he knows me well enough now to know. But I was like, dude, you got to slide, man. Like, and I said, look, I'm not just being the old guy here, but like, Aaron Rodgers got a concussion in Detroit during the Super Bowl season because he didn't slide. And you're in that position now. So you can't take those risks, because nothing against Sean Clifford, but they need you to play. And so my point, and so the roundabout way that I was trying to make a point to him yesterday is, all right, there's risk now. and you're talking life-changing money.
Mhm.
So what are you prepared to do to mitigate that risk? And again,
He
I
gave
love
it to Derek.
Devontae, and
Oh,
Devontae's
that
my guy.
Devontae thing? Yeah, I'm
I
with you on
love
that too.
Devontae, but he should have been a jerk. He should have been.
Yep.
Because then he gets the money that he should have gotten, and he took enormous risk playing that 2021 season on the final year of his deal. It worked out, and he balled out, and he was super productive and set franchise records again. But the bottom line is he should have never been in that. The great players like that are never in that position.
And that was his argument, and he was 100% right. Like, he shouldn't have had to wait and put himself in that position. Like, I completely agree. And like lowballing him and doing all that, those like shenanigans. I'm just like, you wouldn't do that to Rodgers. Like, you wouldn't do that to David Bakhtiari when he was coming up for extension. So I could see why he didn't. Who knows what the dynamic of the team would be now if he had got paid before that, instead of them doing the whole last dance thing, which was basically for him more so than it was for Rodgers.
Yeah,
and
and
with you on that.
That's a really good point, because I would say this, just like I had this argument with Goody at the NFL meetings in 2019. It must have been. They had hired LaFleur. Mm-hmm. It was a year after Jordy had like 60 catches in Oakland
Raiders. Yeah, yep.
And that was when, because you've heard me mention it on the show, that was when he argued, well, I wanted to make sure that Devontae had the ability to become the number one receiver. And he already was. Yeah. Like, Rodgers knew it, Jordy knew it, Devontae knew it. The story, one of my favorite stories about Devontae, and you know this story, is that in Dallas, the game before Rodgers breaks his collarbone in 2017, Rodgers throws incomplete into him to the end zone. He comes back to the huddle and says, run that same play again, but throw a better ball.
Yep.
Like, that's what a number one receiver does. He was the number one receiver.
Exactly.
And he throws a better ball, they win the game. So they were 4-1 at the time. I don't want to relitigate that because you already did a good job of it. But my point is that in the same way, I think Devontae would have been great for these guys.
100%.
And he would have been a great, like, the cool uncle. Yep. That would have given, Rodgers has now become the crazy uncle that at the parties you're not talking to him. And again, I would say that to him. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I am worried about him. But that's another podcast for another day. But I do think Devontae would have been great for them. But you got to give him a ton of credit, because I thought what they did last year. And there's a dog walking through the parking lot we're in, so we've got a good reception. We've got the dogs that are not happy about it.
I got two dogs. They're like, I have a pit bull, Great Dane mix, and a Rhodesian one, the Kahlua one. That are
do they behave when you're on your podcast? Because clearly these guys are not.
I have to kick them out the room, just like my girls. So I feel you.
I got limited options in the car here, and we've got actual good audio and video. So I don't.
It's working, yeah.
So,
no, you're good.
He's gone. Sit down. He's gone. Sit down. He's gone. Yeah.
If I have my dog in the room with me, he's a 80-pound Husky Shepherd mix. He tries to climb into my lap when I talk.
He thinks he's a lap dog? I love it. That's awesome.
Dog. And then he thinks if I'm talking, I'm obviously talking to him, right? Yeah. Only him.
Sure.
And so that's why he's got to be in another room. Yeah.
Sadie, that's enough. Guys. All right, what else? You guys are never going to want me back between the technical difficulties and dogs barking.
You might as well get used to it. You might put this on your schedule or something. I don't know.
It's ballet night. They always want to come along. So he's leaving. Relax. You're ruining the podcast. Sit down. Sit down.
We got a little bit of outside entertainment. Nothing wrong with that.
Hey.
All right.
I can throw a question out here real quick from Iowa Joe. Who wins in a cage match, Wes Hott or Matt Schneidman?
All right, so we have a little group text, our little clique, and Domofsky and I are the old guys in it, but it's Bill Huber, Domofsky, Schneidman, Wes, and me, and I love those guys. I've got a great picture in my office at Lambeau, the five of us in the press box that we had someone take. And you know how dudes are, right? They never take photos, right? And we all should be better about that with all of our friends.
Exactly.
But I wouldn't, Matt is scrawny, but he's tatted up, so I wouldn't mess with him. But here's the thing, and I don't know, you guys should try and you should see if you can get Wes to come on, because if you guys are into UFC or MMA,
A little bit, yeah.
Wes is hardcore.
I've seen it.
Like he is such a nice. He is the. I always like to say Wes is the best of us, right? He's just such a good human.
Yeah.
And yet the bloodthirst that he has for hand-to-hand combat is crazy. Like, it's so inconsistent with him being one of the nicest people on the planet. And what I always give him grief, because if I saw him in the locker room talking with Mercedes Lewis or Kenny Clark,
yeah,
I always knew it was not about football. It was about UFC, because those two guys love it too. And
Mercedes
so here's,
loves UFC. I know that for a fact.
Here's Kenny, who's like the big, tough defensive tackle, or here's, Mercedes, who's like 6'7" and intimidating. And then there's Wes with his glasses. And Wes holds his own, man. They love to talk MMA. It seems incongruous with everything else I know about Wes, but he loves it. So I would not bet against Wes fighting just about anybody because of his knowledge of MMA.
I can see that. Yeah, you watch enough of it, you might pick up a couple of things.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Bernie, you got. I think you had a question
Go
about
ahead,
the draft. You want me to go? Okay, cool. I got you, man. So, all right, with Jordan's comments, which you kind of knew he was kind of going to go that way, right? And I think that's why I was kind of starting off with what I was thinking about, like, I think the Packers, I love what Goody said when he was just like, we've had him in the building for 4 years. We know exactly what we have. And the biggest thing is now going forward, what makes sense in a contract with Jordan? Because for me, it's not my money, obviously. Even though a lot of Packer fans think it's their money. And for me, I'm like, hey, man, get whatever you can get, because the way Goody designed this team, he kind of reverse engineered it. So instead of having to pay marquee players all across the team, he's probably paying like 2, maybe 3 players tops. The offense, most of it's on rookie contracts, except Jacobs, and on defense, you got high items there. But offensively, they can grow together, and they can still pay Jordan and not have to worry about really paying anybody, like you said, probably for another 2-3 years. So do you think, like, Packers are always trying to save money? There's no doubt about that. But if he has to, knowing the way the agent is too, because Dan McGarry doesn't play, like, you think he's in for like a pretty, like, he's going to go for market resetting, or he'll kind of work with the Packers to a certain degree?
I think this is such a fascinating contract negotiation. I'm dying to see how it plays out, because it is, the word unique is often overused, right? Because unique means one of a kind. This is one of a kind.
Right.
Like, you can't use Rodgers, right? You can't use it because he got signed to an extension during his first year as a starter. Yeah. You can't use Trevor Lawrence. You can't use Daniel Jones, right? Nope. Who they're obviously regretting that deal. You can't use Jalen Hurts. You can't, like, nobody has been in a position where they have 1 year as the starter. They sat for 3 years. Mm-hmm. They are at the end of their rookie contract. They signed whatever this half measure contract is. There's no doubt he would be vastly underpaid playing for $11 million this year.
Right.
And yet, and I don't want people, I'm always really careful about this, because I always think, all right, A, people are going to assume that I have a Rodgers bias. B, there were some people that work in this business that were all over the Jordan Love train from the very start, that I just disagreed with them.
Jason, I don't think there's real quick. There's a video of me getting interviewed by Chancellor Johnson, and I was completely against it. And then it's been blasted all over social media by like Brandon Panera and other people, right? And so I've eaten crow since then. So I'm fine with it. But I was definitely, I'm one of those folks that was like, why didn't we get Jefferson or something, right? And then now I'm like, hey, I was completely wrong. Please keep giving me bowls of crow. I'll keep eating them.
Right. He and
but it was touch and go. It was touch and go for 2 years.
It was, right. and I look. That's why I always try to preface things. Tausch gives me so much grief about saying I like Jordan, but I really do. Like, I really like him as a guy, and I like the quarterback he has become. Right. Like what we saw the last 10 games. What's not to like about that? But what we saw the first 7 games, there was reason for concern. And what I saw the first 3 years, there was reason for concern.
Right.
And again, the Packers don't pay Rodgers the 3-year, $150 million contract. They take as much trade, bounty as they can if they're that sure that Jordan Love is going to be what he was in the last 10 games of the season. And they didn't know either. So again, he has now become that guy. But if you're negotiating with him, you can certainly make the argument that, hey, we only saw that you played at this level for 10 games. That's not a big sample size. We're not going to reset the quarterback market for you by paying you more than Joe Burrow, who's been to a Super Bowl, more than like Jared Goff. I understand why people view him the way they do.
Right.
I understand you're paying for future production, not past performance.
Correct.
But the dude's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to an NFC Championship game. Like, he's better than he gets credit for. And again, I am not saying Jordan Love is this guy, but there was a time during the year that the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl that everybody thought Carson Wentz was going to be freaking awesome.
Yeah, he was MVP candidate until he tore his ACL, 100%. Yeah.
Right. And so I don't think that Jordan is going to have the bottom fall out. I think he has established his floor, and his floor is that he's pretty darn good. Is he going to be very good? Is he going to be great? Is he going to be MVP great? Is he going to be Pro Football Hall of Fame great? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just like I didn't know he was going to be this good. But to your question, how do you negotiate that?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you throw in the way the cap has exploded, that everybody's getting overpaid already. So now, how much more do you overpay a guy? And my point and I've heard a couple people bring it back to me, which means that I've actually made a decent point, is that every million that you save, every penny that you pinch with Love is money you can spend on other guys. And I'm not saying that Jordan doesn't deserve that money. I'm saying that if I'm the Packers and I have now created this wide receiver group and this tight end group that are all going to hit free agency in like a 1-year interval.
Yeah, it's like having your kids go to college at the time.
Right. I want to make sure that I am at least doing enough with Love's contract where he feels good, but I'm still saving something, right? And the whole idea of doing an extension is you are giving up the ability to go to market and get total market value because you're getting the security of the guaranteed money that they're giving you while you're still under contract. That's how the negotiation works. Right. So, Jared Goff was under contract. They gave him $170 million guaranteed. What does that mean for Love? I don't know. Like, everybody's got their guesses, but the bottom line is they have to figure out how to placate him, how to make sure his agents feel like they got the best deal they could for their client, and at the same time save money for if Christian Watson stays healthy, they're going to want to pay him. If they've unlocked the secret to his hamstring problems. If Tay Wicks is what Matt LaFleur thinks and what I think, which is this guy could be Devontae Adams.
It's close. Physically built, everything. Like, it's very, very, like, that's a big name to throw. And people have thrown that around, but similarities are crazy. I'm not gonna lie.
It is, and that doesn't mean he's gonna do it, right?
No, of course. Him and Dobbs both have that physique that's very similar to what Devontae was like. And if you look at like his RAS scores and everything,
right. And if and let's say Dobbs turns out to be James Jones, I always try to use that old
Hoodie Jones. Sign me up,
right. Like you'll take that. He's not going to break the bank. He's going to be good in the red zone. He's going to be good on third down. Like, that's a pretty good wide receiver for you. So even if he's not. And if Reed is a better version of Randall Cobb, Randall Cobb had the 2014 season he had was ridiculous. Like, it
was nasty.
He actually ended up catching more balls, including the playoffs, than Jordy did that year.
Yeah.
So again, they have a lot of really good players, it would appear, and if they are as good as we think they are, they need to have the money to pay them. And I'm not saying skimp on the quarterback contract. I'm saying save where you can. Like, if you're buying on eBay, I always make an offer. I don't just buy it straight out for their asking price. So
Yeah,
if
no,
I'm
always negotiate a little bit.
right, so if Jordan is on Poshmark or eBay, I
Poshmark's
still,
a good one.
as good as he is, I still want to get those, Nike 270s for a good discount, even though they're in like new condition.
Like new, exactly. That's awesome. I agree. Like they're gonna need to figure out what they're gonna do with Tom. That news you dropped today, man, about the torn pec. That I was not gonna lie. That gutted me just like it gutted Balaga. I was like, oh my gosh, like
yeah, I got to get him a State Journal subscription so he would have known about that before I said it. What? I'm like, LaFleur told us in the press conference. We talked to Zach yesterday. I didn't know you were going to be that surprised, but yeah, look, and I'm glad you bring him up, regardless of the injury. He's another guy you have to pay, right? You have to pay him. He is too good. He is Elton Jenkins. But I was talking about this in the locker room yesterday with somebody while we were there was a lull for a little while, because I'm a big Kenny Clark guy. But is
contract.
Is Kenny Clark going to get a third contract? I mean,
he should.
But I'm starting to wonder if Goody is convinced that not only is he not going to give out third contracts, he's going to be very selective about second contracts. And he made that comment during that pre-draft press conference about how, on average, 1.6 draft picks get new second deals.
Oh yeah,
from their classes, and the fact that he said that, if that's his mentality, he better keep drafting really well.
I was gonna say, and you know how they always do that too. They like pay somebody and then they'll draft like a player in the position that they paid, right? Like I think it was like Jair got signed, and then after they signed Jair, they drafted Stokes, right? And then same thing with like they paid Kenny, I believe. And I think the following year they went ahead and got Slayton, and they got Wyatt at that same time too. And I'm always wondering, like, playing for the future. But Kenny's one of those guys. He's just like Bach, man. Like, you got to give him a third contract. Like, I don't see why not. But you're right though. Like, Goody's cutthroat when it comes to some of this stuff. It's kind of crazy. Like, I felt like Ted did have more of a little. I felt like Ted had more of a heart when it came to that, and Goody definitely is like corporate America almost. He's just like, no, I'm sorry. He's just a number, man.
I do believe that that's the way he views it, and I don't think that's going to change with him. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember talking with Rodgers in 2022 early in the season and asking him, he and I both love the movie Moneyball. And I asked him about, you guys, I don't know why that dog feels the need to be in this parking lot, but maybe that's part of their nightly routine. But then it turned out that Rodgers' buddy out in LA plays the player that gets traded, Pena, in the movie. And so he totally was all in on the comp between Goody and Brad Pitt. And so as it turned out, Goody never changed. Like, Goody didn't have any sort of come to Jesus of, okay, I have to be more
based on everything Rodgers said. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I regardless of what Rodgers wanted or Rodgers hoped would happen, Goody believes in this. And I respect him, because I've always said, like, Charles Woodson would still be playing safety if I was around. I'm
sorry. Everyone's looking bad on that team when he played Kaepernick. I'm sorry. There was nobody that was touching him like that. I could tell, like, Woodson couldn't get him. I'm like, okay, but nobody else did. We cut him after that. I was like, come on, guys. Like, nah, Woodson had 2 years left in him at least. So I'm with you on that, 100%.
Well, him and Jordy would still be lining up in 2024 if I was GM. So whether they wanted to or not.
So I know there's been like Iowa Joe here has a great question, and I when Rob Grabowski like dropped off that like nugget about the offensive line, and he was and this is before we obviously drafted Jacob Monk, but it was like, Tom can be a great right tackle, he could be an amazing guard, or he could be a Hall of, I'm saying wrong, but basically he'd be a Hall of Famer center.
Hall of Fame, yeah, Hall of Fame center, yeah, that's what the guy said.
And so, like, with that being said, I've been kind of perpetually a Josh Myers hater just because of where we draft him, because of Creed Humphrey, and then just kind of sometimes seeing him out there lost and confused on pass and certain plays. But what do you think? Like, do you feel like what are your thoughts on Josh? And do you think like this is like his last year, or do you think Zach will make the move, or that's why Monk got drafted? Because he's probably going to take over that spot.
Yeah, I've talked to Monk once. I've watched highlights of him at Duke. So for me to, but that said, I still allowed myself to suggest maybe he's like Corey Linsley, right? Fifth round guy,
yep.
drafted in the 5th round, played the position in college, so he knows how. He's not converting like you'd be doing with some other players.
True.
I really like Monk as a dude. Like, this is a guy who, I mean, he got the call that he was being drafted after he had left a funeral for his uncle. And talking to him about his family, and like, he just seems like one of those kind of guys that you want as a cornerstone player. And they loved him. I mean, they really wanted to make sure they got him in that draft, right? So that said, I would predict, through no major fault of his own, that Josh Myers is going to be this year's John Runyon. Like, John Runyon did nothing to deserve not getting re-signed, but right. I believe that is part of Goody's theory. We're going to we're not going to overpay a guard who got paid by the Giants, but we're not going to pay. We're just going to plug somebody else in, right? And so that's kind of my feel for what Goody's philosophy is going to be moving forward. We replace Josh Myers with Jacob Monk, or we move Elton Jenkins, or whatever they end up doing. Because I don't think, regardless of what that guy, because it was 2 guys that told Rob that from inside the building.
Yeah.
Whatever they think, it doesn't matter what they think. Like, I think Zach Tom's the right tackle forever. Like, when we brought it up to Stenovich, he made no, like, he said he's pretty much established himself on the edge. Yeah. So now, is it possible he could be a left tackle at some point? Maybe. But, this is
played that a little bit in 2022.
Yeah, he did, and he played it well.
Washington. Yeah, against Washington.
Right, but I would argue that, unlike the old days when my radio partner was playing right tackle, and you wanted that kind of road grader who also had good feet to pass protect. Now you got to be able to be elite as a pass protector.
Yeah,
and I think both Tausch and Bulaga could have done that, but I think there's a lot of right tackles throughout that era that could not be playing right tackle now. They'd be guards.
Okay. Yeah, because they couldn't have the feet for it, and it's funny too, because like I remember when Tausch was in there, he had like this record of like, what was it? It was a no holding.
Right, he had never had a holding call. He had one holding call in his career, I think.
I remember when he got it, and the look on his face was utter disgust. Like, you could see it through his mask. It was just like he couldn't believe it.
I think it was because as Bill Raftery would call it, I think he felt it was a nickel dimer, and I think he's honest enough to know and to admit that he probably had plenty of holding calls that didn't get called that were far more egregious than the one that he did get.
That's what probably drives him probably the most craziest.
No doubt. No doubt.
You call me on this? Like, come on, man.
No doubt. Yep.
So, Bernie, you're up, man. What you got?
Well, I just want to throw in there the first time I ever seen Tausch, he was actually throwing shot put against my brother in high school. So that's my first.
Did your brother beat him?
No.
Damn it!
You needed that.
I really needed him to have beaten him.
Yeah. No, I went to Nakusa High School. We were paper makers, and Tausch, of course, was in Auburndale. So
the Apaches, very racially sensitive nickname for the Apaches. Yes.
Back then.
I think they might still be that. I'm not sure on that. Yeah. I'm not sure they've changed. I'll have to check with Tausch if he ever comes back from vacation.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's just rotating right now.
But no, I wanted to throw one at you quick. I guess any early favorite stories lines coming out of the OTAs there.
Yeah, so this is my favorite time of the year. Like, even something as simple as Alex Magoo trying to make it as a wide receiver. Like, I love that kind of stuff, right? Like, and there are people that are, I feel like I'm okay when it comes to X's and O's and understanding the game, but there are people that are way better at that than me. What I like is telling people stories. And I got to tell Keyshawn Nixon and his mom's story. I know Matt Steinman had done that in The Athletic a couple of years ago, but getting to tell that story on Mother's Day was really cool. But this is, to me anyway, what I love about football and covering the NFL as opposed to, say, covering the NBA or Major League Baseball is that there's only one game a week. And so you have other times to tell guys stories, because I do think this is a sport where you don't get to know the players, right? They've got the masks on. It's just a different deal. And so that's the part that I really look forward to at this time of year. And there are some really compelling stories, right? I mean, the quarterback, Michael Pratt, has a really good story of the influence that losing someone really close to him has had on the guy he became. I'm really eager to see get an opportunity to tell his story. I think, Anthony Campanile, their new linebackers coach, everybody knows him from Hard Knocks and that profanity-laced speech that he gave. But there's a hell of a lot more to him than that. And so I know, Bernie, you weren't asking necessarily storylines, but those are the storylines that I like to think about. Now, in terms of what's going to happen with this team, Xavier McKinney taking control of the defense. The defense, how effective is it going to be? Brian Bulaga was talking about how when he was in LA with the Chargers, they ran something similar to that at times, and that the concept was you play the run on your way to the quarterback. So San Francisco does, Houston, the Jets. Well, it feels to me like didn't matter who the personnel was, who the head coach was, who the defensive coordinator was. They suck against the run in Green Bay. So is that going to change? That's a storyline, right? That's a big storyline.
It's a huge
Is Jordan Morgan going to overtake Rasheed Walker and be the left tackle on opening day? I'm putting my money on Rasheed Walker. I talked to him a little bit yesterday. I don't think just because Jordan Morgan thinks he's going to be the left tackle, he's going to be the left tackle. I would like to see Josh Jacobs. He was out there for some drill work. He didn't do 11 on 11 yesterday. I'm really eager to see what are they going to do with him. One of the things that I'm really intrigued by in terms of what happens in year two is, and I know we've talked about this, all of us have. How different is this offense going to be with everybody knowing where to line up, what the playbook looks like? I mean, they were bad last year, and LaFleur and Steno were clearly searching for what can we do with these guys. And then, my favorite story from last year was, LaFleur saying to Love, you got to let it rip. And then me saying to LaFleur, I got him. He was coming through the locker room, and I grabbed him, and we talked for like 10 minutes, the two of us. And my point to him was, if you're going to tell Jordan he has to let it rip, doesn't the play caller have to let it rip too?
Yep.
And he did that in Pittsburgh, right? And so both those guys, that was a transformative game for the offense. And from then on, they were different. So now that he's let it rip with his play calling, what can he do next level with these guys having so much better understanding? So, Bernie, that's a huge storyline because I want to see what they're capable of, right? The fact that Tucker Kraft tore his pec really sucks. Because I want to see with all those wide receivers, I still want to see two tight end sets and see what those two guys can do. Unfortunately, the way the storyline played out with the New England Patriots, I don't want to make the comp there. But there was a time with those two guys that they had, with Gronk and the other guy, that it was tough to defend. And those guys could potentially be that way if they're both healthy. But again, is this a Super Bowl team? Could be. I certainly wouldn't rule it out. But with where we're at right now today, with Josh Jacobs has a little hamstring thing that he's not able to practice.
Hamstring, that's like the bugaboo.
Your right tackle tore his pec. Your number 2 tight end tore his pec. Like, the one thing that can prevent them from being that Super Bowl contender is if they don't have good injury luck. And we know that's the case for everybody, but it's especially the case for them because we just don't know what they can become.
A young team, there's so much depth. You don't know who can step in. Like in 2010, we had all those injuries, but we had good depth to be able to kind of overcome them. We could have the same thing now, but who knows, right? And Injuries are 100% guaranteed in the NFL, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, even Jordan was dealing with something, even though he was on an injury report last year. After that Saints game, when he did that little funky kind of split thing, I knew he was dealing with something. And
Right.
he just wasn't coming on the report or anything. But I'm saying, like, these guys are dealing with stuff like, I mean, we just found out that Darnell Savage had a torn rotator cuff after week 13 and played through it the whole year, which was mind-boggling to me. I was like, I didn't know that. No one knew that. I was like, that's news.
Yeah, and I would argue that one of the things that I don't like about this job, as much as I try to explain it to players and coaches alike, is that you're doing those guys a disservice when you withhold that kind of information.
Yeah.
Because then they get criticized. Because as Tausch always says, if you're out there, the expectation is you're 100% you're going to play. And I've never subscribed to that. Like, you know, there was the first year Woodson was in Green Bay in 2006. Yeah, he was unhappy to be there, but he also his shoulder was completely jacked up. So, you know, whether or not he was playing at the level that he eventually would play at, that was a factor, whether you want to give it credence or not. So again, I'm really, I said last year going into the year, it's the most fascinating year I've ever covered, not knowing what to expect. And it delivered. Like, I picked them to go 6-11 and they outkicked my expectations, and it was a hell of a lot better story. But again, you know, I don't ever expect anybody to understand how my brain works, but it's not my job to cheer for them. That's your guys' job.
Yep. Exactly.
And so I'm eager to see how it plays out. And if they win the Super Bowl and it's a great story, great. But I'm here to chronicle the journey, wherever it lands, wherever it twists and turns, and wherever it ultimately comes to an end for the 2024 Packers. And I may be old, but I'm really excited about this season. I think it's going to be really fascinating. And for your sake as fans, and again, I don't expect this.
Yeah.
But for your sake as fans, I hope there's not a backslide. I don't think there will
be. The regression thing is real, and I've been kind of open to it more now than I've ever been, because I'm like, it could happen. It truly could happen.
But again, I think this is looking at them on paper, which is not where the games are played.
Right.
This is an 11-6 team. I would think at worst another 2-game improvement that puts you right in the thick of things. Are they in an NFC Championship game? Again, I don't know, but you got to get in the tournament to then get to the Super Bowl, and I think they have a team that should be a force to be reckoned with.
That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. They got a tough stretch down the road on the schedule.
Yeah. They do, but you know, they should get off to a much better start than they did last year. They should have some momentum going into that, because they do not have a murderer's row of opponents on this schedule. I understand, like, from a winning percentage perspective, they have like the 4th hardest schedule.
Yeah,
but
from last year's record. Yep.
But we know how accurate that stuff is. So it's there. The opportunity is there if they can stay healthy.
Yeah. I also just want to check in with you, Jason, and be respectful of your time. We've been talking for quite a while.
Yeah, I got a ballerina to go pick up, and now that I've finally figured out that there's another section of this parking lot where apparently the dogs aren't. Wouldn't you take your dog to a field? Like, there's one in front of me, not like there's a bunch of concrete in a parking lot. What are you doing? Like, killing me, man.
I think you take your kids there to teach them how to park and drive, but not like your dogs.
Right. So I'm sorry that they bark so much. So I got time for one more, and then I got to roll.
That's you, Amar.
Okay. All right. Dang, they put me on the spot. I wasn't expecting that. Jason, I really don't have a question, but I just want to thank you for just coming on. You're absolutely amazing. We would love to have you on again, maybe later on in the season. Maybe give more insights or information on you, on things that you kind of see and hear that you can and can't talk about.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll maybe we can do it on a night that I'm at home. So if the dogs are barking, I can just go to a different room. But look, in all seriousness, and Aaron Nagler and I haven't always seen eye to eye on things, but I respect the hell out of him, and I really like him as a guy. And guys like him and Corey Benke and what you guys are doing, and a lot of other people in like the Packers podcast, blogosphere, Twitter realm. Like it really is special. And I'm glad that there are so many of you, and that we have the technology now for you guys to connect. I still hope that those of us that do this for a living, that there's a respect for the expertise. And I know you guys certainly have it, and I appreciate that. At the same time, I just think that it's such a cool community. And, like stuff like Kyle Cousineau, forget about his leaks of the schedule. The fact that here's a guy who like tries to put people together to make sure that people who are selling Packers tickets sell them to other Packers fans. Like that's the kind of stuff that's special about this fan base. And I while I always emphasize that I'm not a fan, that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the fandom that this team has. And you guys have heard me on the radio. Like, I still think that this organization needs to do a better job of living up to the "we are owned by the fans," because they love to talk a good game, but I don't think they live those words. They need to do more for a fan base that is second to none. I will always criticize them for that, whether it's prices, whether it's doing special. They should have a real draft party. It should not be a virtual draft party. They should have they should bring back Fan Fest. Again, you are held to a higher standard. If you want to be able to say, we don't have a billionaire owner, we have the best fans in football, you need to reward them for being that. And I don't think they do a good enough job of that. That's my little speech against them. The bottom line is, though, I'm glad that you guys are all out there because you make what I do relevant. And I always tell people, I've got doctor friends who help cure childhood cancer. I've got so many friends who do so much more important things than me, but I'm really blessed to get to do something I love for a lot of people that are really passionate about it. And so I appreciate you both. Sorry about the dogs and the bad connection
apologies,
at first.
No apologies. You're good.
But I'll just close with this. I would venture to say that your future podcasts will not be the same as this one. There will not be a podcast that will have the same technical glitches and canine issues that I have dealt with. So I'm sorry for that.
You did say unique is a word that's used a lot. Definitely was unique and one of a kind.
No
Which
doubt.
I didn't expect any less from you, sir.
No, I appreciate you both. All right, I'm going to go get our ballerina. So thanks for having me, guys. Take care. Be good.
You too.
See ya.
Bye. Oh, man, that was awesome.
All right, man. That was rad. Glad we got to chat it up with him. Seems open to coming back. It would be great to talk to him during the season, man. Just to hear how things are going,
Yeah. I didn't have another question. I had one and I lost it, and I was like, shit.
Oh no, I'm sorry, man.
No, you're good.
I had that draft question lined up too, but then the OTA question, like, what's your favorite storyline? OTAs kind of popped up in my head. I'm like, that's going on right now.
That was awesome.
We've beat the draft to
Drafting was cool, but I was like, if you had a good one, I was like, roll with it. And then if he'd answered the OTA thing, I was just gonna be like, hey, what'd you think of the picture of Marshawn Lloyd going around looking just like a Jack G unit? Like he looks monstrous. And I know it doesn't mean anything, but it's that whole like, hey, they walked off the bus. You know how they say the way they look when they walk off the bus? You know what I'm saying? Like Marshawn Lloyd got that look, dog. Like he's a stat dude, man. Like holy crap. So but it was awesome for him to come join us, man. That was great. And got a lot of insight on things about old stuff that's happened before, which was really cool because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it's pretty cool for him to have an opportunity to kind of speak on the show about it, And so, but Bernie, I know we both got stuff going on right now, and like you always say, I'm going to take you in line, be respectful of people's time here. But man, that was great, and just let you guys know, we're planning on having Matt Ramage on Monday, and we're going to just shoot the shit with him, talk to him about just everything, his whole Bears still suck thing, and just get his, get his vibes on everything. And so, really looking forward to see you guys here on Monday. But those are my last words, and I just want to thank you, Bernie, for just being you.
Yeah, man, it was absolute blast, and great. That was the first time really getting to chat with Jason. So, and then thank you everyone who joined us tonight. I just threw that comment up there to Michael Red and said, "Nice job, gentlemen. Thank you.
Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you as well." And yeah, man, awesome Wednesday night, right? So we'll be back next Monday, like you said, with Matt Ramage, and I'm gonna go eat some dinner, man.
Same here, bro. All right, buddy.
Have a good one.
Go Pack.
Go Pack.